Okay, today we're going to deal with 3 Francis family figment fibs.
And we have one Mica Miller using mobile media for mass messaging. So welcome to The Point. Let's get to it.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Okay, first of all, somebody was making fun of me because I sniff. I have a tick. I had a tick since I was a kid, so that's what it is.
So I think I know who he's talking about in that clip, and he didn't necessarily poke fun at him for having a medical condition. He was just simply speculating on the possibility John Paul was using extracurricular substances. That being said, congratulations to True Crime Read for giving John Paul a platform to tell his side. But John Paul needs to understand these people online in the comment section absolutely take no prisoners. So toughen up, Buttercup.
At some point, we're going to have to recognize in time that this story is about mental illness awareness more than anything else.
Okay, so he's not completely wrong here, but he's not completely right either. And I'm very curious to know from you right now, what is your reason for being so interested in this story? And if you believe your voice matters and an open conversation is something you prefer, hit that like button and leave a comment down below. Because the public's interest in this case is vast in my own opinion. For some people, they're following this case because of its possible ties to DV and DA. For others, it's the players involved that have them captivated. For me personally, it was realizing how many holes are in these laws that are supposed to be put in place to protect people in this type of scenario. And for others, yes, they believe this story is about mental awareness.
My wife was diagnosed with bipolar II disorder, schizophrenia, dependent personality disorder, and several other diagnoses by different doctors at different times all throughout the past 7 years. The 2 diagnoses that stayed with her every single year was schizophrenia and bipolar II. Bipolar II is where you're super high and you want to give away $1,000. The low is you want to end. And she went super high and super low many times over the years. And it was a struggle, almost a constant struggle, but we got through it. And the schizophrenia is where she would hear voices or talk to people that were not there. She'd play chess with people that were not there without a chessboard. She would sometimes forget who I was or forget that I was her husband.
Okay, is it just me? Because I feel like he's trying to set up and out here. So let's continue.
She'd forget who she was or forget that she was my wife. Sometimes she'd forget who her family is, things like that. And on March 11th, remember that date because you super sleuths out there are going to need to know that date for the future. But I'm
definitely not talking about me.
For the future. But on March 11th, something happened that kind of forever changed the course of our lives. And
called it.
She went really deep into the schizophrenia and was delusional and accusing me of certain things, slamming tires or sending a naked picture or fucking her or things like that I didn't do. And I found an Apple AirTag in my car, in my truck that way.
Okay, hang on there. So now John Paul's saying he didn't do any of that. But we've all seen that clip at the dealership. Plus that email he wrote supposedly apologizing for every single one of those things. And when he apologized, I personally commended him for taking some ownership here. So where's the proof? Don't get me wrong, y'all know on this channel we don't blanket trust anybody in the mainstream media. Just take my views on the Brian Kohlberger case, for example. But I'm not seeing a lot of holes within this story, unless I missed something. Now, News Nation ran a story a few weeks ago where that reporter told everybody that he was in contact with John Paul. And that story also said John Paul told everybody that AirTag was placed on Mica's car simply so he could be aware of where she was because he was trying to keep her alive. So I need somebody in the comments section to make all this make sense.
And I assumed it was hers because I would keep seeing her pop up where I was at.
So I just caught this in edit, but he previously said he wasn't stalking and doing all that stuff that she's accusing him of. But he just said right there she kept popping up and he figured it was her. So isn't keeping track of somebody electronically the same as stalking? Let me know in the comments.
Here's a video of, I was at a gas station on March 13th, and I look up and I see this very beautiful woman in a car that I've never seen before. And I learned quickly, of course, it was my wife. And she was hiding out or spying or something, and began videotaping me. And so I videotaped her, videotaping me.
Okay, so y'all just taping each other? Y'all just doing the thing in front of everybody. Now, I'm not a doctor by any means, but yeah, all that just looks normal to me.
It's sad that the mental illness is sad, but we managed to always find lightheartedness in life in spite of it, and we always got through it. And I would do things like sometimes I had to play into the delusion, like pretend like I was a double agent who quit their job to marry this beautiful girl.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know how to respond to any of that appropriately, so I'm not gonna do it.
And I'd have to show her our marriage license, and one time I even wrote a resignation to an agency saying that I can no longer work for you because I fell in love and wanted to get married, and things like that. It would help her take her medicine.
Okay, that is a thing apparently. So it's not for me to call BS here.
When she would come off of it, and I learned that about 2 years into the marriage, and we worked hard to keep her on her medicine. We worked very hard to keep her enjoying her life. She didn't have to cook a single meal. She didn't have to clean. She didn't have to work. She just had to take her medicine and enjoy her life. And
idle hands, bud. Look, if you can do this for your spouse, then good for you. And like I said earlier, I'm not a doctor, but it's my understandings in scenarios like this, an abundance of free time can do more harm than good. And if any of you in the medical field watching right now could clarify this a little bit, we would all greatly appreciate it.
enjoy her life, and we did our best with what we had. But here's a video of March 13th.
Yep, there it is, just in the open. Say what you want, but those two people have absolutely no shame. But in all seriousness, I'm about to ruffle a few people's feathers, and I'm not trying to be mean about it. But the story floating around right now is Mica was perfectly fit and healthy before she got with John Paul. It wasn't until after she got with John Paul that all this stuff started to happen. And a lot of people are making the case that all this is John Paul's fault, and if they would have never got together, Mica would have been perfectly happy and healthy. But people do need to realize conditions like this can show up later in life. It doesn't have to be a situation where you come out of the womb and you have this going on. People do develop stuff like this when they get older. So in my own ignorant opinion, I think whatever was going to happen to Mica in terms of her health, it was going to happen regardless of who she was with. That being said, I also think it's fair to say some people can make other individuals with this type of condition much worse. And as Mrs. To The Point said in an earlier video, it seems like those two were just bad for each other. It's a lot like chlorine and ammonia. You have to be careful when you use it, but when used properly, they're both perfectly fine. But it's absolutely bad news for everybody around them when those two are mixed together. With these video interviews, it's still hard for me to say what is completely false or completely true. And Michael Francis has plainly came out and said John Paul is using this platform to gaslight everybody. The for sure thing I can say right now is both these families have drawn a line in the sand. And when this court case is over, whoever wins this thing is going to be heavily scarred. Regardless of the winner of this case, I hope we get justice for Mica. And I hope that justice comes in the form of every single state readdressing their laws and filling in these holes so we never have another story like this again. But a lot like the Francis family, John Paul's making some bold claims, and whoever falls at the end of this thing is gonna fall hard. Y'all be safe now.